Now, if you know me at all, then you know how much I love a good plan. I want a step-by-step process for everything from making my morning coffee to growing a 7-figure business. And that includes content planning. Because let's face it, if I sit down at my desk to write an email or create a podcast or write a Substack article and I don't know what I'm writing about, I can wander off into all kinds of unproductive directions that don't serve me, don't serve my business, and they certainly don't serve you. When I have a plan, everything runs like clockwork. And that is exactly what you want a business to do, right? This is episode 135 of the Tiny Course Empire podcast. And today I'm going to show you how I planned out an entire year's worth of content in just an afternoon using nothing but my index cards and my Google Calendar. So let's get started. Hey, real quick, before we get into today's topic, I want to remind you that all of the resources that I talk about are linked below, as well as my Clear Framework training to help you build a 6 or 7-figure business from the ground up. Even if you're just getting started, you can grab that just below. While you're there, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes. New episodes come out every Monday morning. And next week, I want to tell you about my top 5 books for content creators. I believe that small business owners like ourselves should be reading more, and I've got 5 books to get you started. But that's next week. This week, I want to talk about how I planned an entire year's worth of content in just an afternoon with nothing more than my Google Calendar and some index cards. There's this idea that I took from a productivity speaker, teacher, writer, might have been Stephen Covey, who talks about big rocks, with the idea being that if you are planning your schedule, you should always put the big rocks in first. Those are the things that are most important to you. Those are the things that really can't be moved. And then you can slot the smaller things in, the more flexible things in around those big rocks. And that ensures that you always have space for the most important things. So when I'm planning out my content calendar, I start with the big rocks too. And for me, the big rocks are my courses. These are the things that I want to take priority in my business, that I want to be talking about most, that I want to share the most, and that I want to be promoting throughout the year. So I decided in 2025 that I am going to teach my courses as cohorts. And what that means is that everyone will go through the course at the same time. They can be purchased after that as standalone courses, but to get the biggest impact, to have the best results, it's often better if you are going through a course with a group of other people who are also studying the same material. It gives you the opportunity to get live feedback and to kind of hang out with the community and get inspiration from other business owners and to hear from me. There's a lot of benefits to going through a cohort style course. So I decided in 2025, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run cohort style courses, and I'm going to run 4 of them. Those are my big rocks. That's what we're calling them. And I went over here to my handy index card file here on my desk, and I have my cohort courses mapped out. The first one coming up is compounding content, and you can see on my calendar that starts on February 3rd. So I blocked off that time in my calendar. And then if we skip ahead to May, you will see that I have List Build Like a Pro also blocked off on my calendar. So I did this for all 4 of the cohort courses that I'm going to teach in 2025. So I have 1 in February, 1 in May, 1 in August, and 1 in October. So that time is blocked off on my calendar. I can see it. These are the most important things that I will be talking about with my content. So the next step then once I have this space blocked off, once I have these placeholders there, is to go into my calendar and work backwards. So I know, for example, that for 2 weeks before a course starts, I want to be promoting it. I want to be emailing about it. I want to be talking about it on the podcast. I want to be connecting with affiliates about it. There's going to be a lot of promotional activity happening in those 2 weeks just before the course begins. So I also block that time off on my calendar. I can go right here and say, I want to promote. And that's going to run from January 20th because I want 2 weeks. So I have January 20th until the final sign-up day of February the 2nd. So now I know that that's when I'm going to be promoting compounding content. So I can then map my content to that timeline. Now, that's just promotional content. That's me sending an email saying compounding content is open for registration. Here's the link to go purchase it, right? Not all of my content is sales related. Not all of my content has a buy button attached to it. So what am I going to do, for example, during these other 3 weeks of January? Well, that's when I'm going to be talking to you about creating content. Much like I'm doing right here today. I'm going to be talking about why content is important to your business, how to create more content, how to schedule more content, where you should be publishing content, different kinds of content, how to get over the problems that you might have with publishing content. All of that slots into this empty space as we approach the launch of compounding content. So what am I putting in those spaces? What am I talking about during that time? When I sit down at my desk in the middle of January to record a podcast episode, how do I know what it's going to be about? Well, that's where my index cards come into play. And you can see I have this whole box here. I bought this box at Walmart for about $4, and it fits my 4x6 cards maybe. And within this box, I have random things that I come across that relate to different aspects of running an online business, whether it's content creation or technology choices or coaching or building a list or engaging with that list, all different kinds of things that come up as I go about my day, different ideas I come up with, different questions people ask me, different, concerns that they have, different platforms that come online that people are interested in, new tools that are available, websites, all kinds of different things go into my box with just a random note. I have these notes sitting here on my desk, and I'll just jot down notes with questions or ideas or whatever comes across my desk, and I file them away in my box here. And then when I'm getting ready to create content, when I'm mapping out my content that goes along with promoting something like compounding content, I go through my box of index cards and I pull out all of the cards that are related to that particular topic. So this topic is obviously about creating content. So I've pulled out all of the cards that are related to creating content, and I've stacked them all together, and they're labeled problems. These are my list of problems that my students have when it comes to creating content. So for example, I have a card here that says, I don't know what to create content about. This is a question that people have asked me or a concern that people have brought to me in the past. My students have said to me, I know I should be creating content, but I don't know what to talk about. So I have that problem written here on a card, and I have some ideas here for them. So all of these ideas. So for example, I have build an idea garden. That's what this is. That's what my index card file is. It's my idea garden. You can see I even have it labeled idea garden. So I could potentially teach you how to build an idea garden so that you never run out of ideas for content. So maybe that will become a podcast episode, or maybe it will become part of the course, or maybe it will become a webinar. I've already run a webinar on this last year. Maybe I will repurpose that webinar and run that again. Another idea I have here is SEO research. Researching the keywords that people are searching for online to solve the problems that you help them solve is a good way to come up with content ideas. And there are some very simple ways that you can do that. So I could create a podcast episode or an article about how to do some very simple SEO research to find the questions that people are asking about the problem that you help them solve. So that's another way that you can get ideas for creating content. So here within my problems stack of index cards, I have, probably 15 cards with different problems on them and different ideas for solutions for those problems. And all of those could potentially be content to fill in this blank space in my calendar here from January until I begin promoting compounding content in earnest on the 20th of January. Now, why would you want to fill in your calendar with different ideas like that, with different topics like that, with different solutions for people? Well, the idea is very simple. We want to get them thinking about the issue that you are, or the problem that you are solving with the course that you have created. So in my case, I am creating a course called Compounding Content. It is all about creating content to grow your business. So I want people who are watching the podcast or listening to the podcast or reading my Substack, I want them to be thinking about content creation as it relates to their own business. And I want to be helping them to solve some of those preliminary issues so that when I do start promoting compounding content, they are more interested in the topic. They are seeing how this topic is important to them, how it can help them grow their business, and they are more likely to be ready to make a purchase at that point. So that's how I went through and I built out the content plan for compounding content. Now, you might say, okay, but that's not a whole year's worth of content, right? It's not. It is a month's worth of content. But I went through the entire year and did the same exercise for every single course that I will be promoting. Now, I'm not going to tell you that this content plan isn't going to change, because it very well might, right? The further out we go, like I cannot look out to September and say for sure that I'm going to, create a podcast on any given day in September about a specific topic, because new topics come up all the time. New ideas come up, better ideas show up, bigger questions show up, bigger problems show up. I don't want to limit myself to those ideas that are so far out. But I do know that if I want to get a little bit ahead on my content creation, if I want to be recording podcast episodes in December for release in January, I know what I'm going to be talking about. I'm never going to sit down at my desk and not know what my plan is, what I am creating for content to promote my products and my services. I'm never going to not know what I'm working on. And that's the whole point. So is it more flexible further out? Yes, absolutely. But I do have a really good idea overarching for the entire year of what I'm going to be talking about and when. And that makes my job as a content creator so much easier. So this is something that you can do too. All you have to do is sit down with your calendar and think about, what are you going to be promoting? What are your big rocks? Do you have a course coming up that you want people to purchase? Do you have a coaching program coming up that you're going to launch? Maybe you are launching a new membership site, whatever it is. When is that going to happen? What's the date? And then work backwards and say, okay, how many days will I be promoting it? And how many days before that do I want to be talking about it to get people interested in the idea, to bring it to the front of their minds if they haven't been thinking about it, and to help solve some of those preliminary problems that's going to make it easier for them to then purchase when I do start promoting it in earnest. And you can work all of that out on a calendar. Now, you don't have to keep a box of index cards sitting on your desk like I do. You can keep your ideas in a Trello board, or you can keep them in a notes app, or you can keep them in a spreadsheet, or you can keep them on sticky notes stuck to your monitor, whatever works for you. The important thing is that you keep some kind of list of problems and solutions for your potential students, for your ideal client, that will lead them to then making that purchase of the course that you are promoting in the future. And you don't have to know what you're building for the entire year. Most people probably don't, especially if you're just starting out. You might only know that you have a course idea that you would like to launch in January. That may be as far out as you can schedule, and that's fine. That works too. Just don't allow yourself to get to the point where it is the middle of March and you haven't emailed your list and you haven't published any content in 3 weeks and you still don't know what you should be talking about. That's what this plan will solve. This plan makes it so you always know what you are creating content about, or at least what direction you're going. And that makes it so much easier to be consistent with your content publishing. And you know me, you know that next to systems, consistency is my favorite word. So I want you to be consistent with your content marketing, and this will help. Now it's your turn. Drop me a comment below and let me know if you plan out your content in this way or in some other way. What systems do you use? How do you know what you are creating content around? Or are you a fly by the seat of your pants kind of content creator? There's no wrong answer here. I am genuinely curious about how you manage your content. And could you do me a favor? If you enjoyed this episode, if you learned something from it, I would love it if you would share it with a friend or a colleague who can use business building advice. That's the best way to help the channel grow, and I really appreciate your support. Remember, I will be back next week with my 5 favorite books for content creators, so I hope to see you there.